Always sand with your butt pad in place. There's a definite lip right here that I want to take down in order to make this look smooth and like this wood grew up against this pad here. So what I've done, normally on a checkering cradle, I would stab it with this sharp edge right here and stab it into the wood, but I don't want to damage this. So this is the one time when a Phillips screw is appropriate on a freaking gun. Put it in here because it's got a tapered head and it'll line this plate up the same way the regular screw will line up. And we can just set it down over our normal centers. Drop down in on this, run the nut up, and then we're there. And now this whole mess here is free to rotate, see? So part of what I wanted to show you guys was when you're sanding, I don't want to roll over this edge. Now, if you have a brass butt plate or a steel butt plate, there is a legitimate sentiment that says you don't want to get the particles that you're sanding up into the wood. So you always back your sandpaper. Always back it. I run it on a piece of this heavy felt. This is 150 grit. We started by scraping this stock down with an edged scraper, and I'll cover that here in just a second. But when you're sanding, you don't want to roll over this edge. I start with 150 grit. I never go below 150. The scratches are just too nasty. Work it down with 150 here, and then we'll start touching off on the pad. And once I've got it down there, we'll come back in with a piece of wood, all right? And this piece of wood has a definite flat surface on it. And what that's going to allow me to do is make sure that as I'm running in and out here, I'm not rolling off the edge. We're just running this down until it rolls completely out onto this plate. You can see it hasn't started to scuff this plate out. But for rollout, let me show you what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is this line right here. See this line? And we'll walk this shadow away. And what happened was, while this was being sanded, the paper was rolled over this way. And it looks like ass. So in this shot, you can see where the butt plate is. You can see how that whole thing just curls around behind it. Hell, it does it on both sides. Let's see. We'll get it right there on that side. Not so much there, but you can see there's a definite roll off that just looks like it was done by a trained rat with a sharpened salad fork. Yeah, so you definitely don't want to do any of that you just saw. You want to just keep sanding until this rolls all the way in and it's nice and flat and it looks like it came all the way out. You can see here we're starting to scuff this up a little bit. So let's move up to the front end here. Let me show you something else. It is fundamentally impossible to correctly sand this stock and not damage this checkering. So I've gotten in, I wouldn't say arguments, but I've gotten in spirited discussions with customers that wanted me to refinish a gun but not rechecker it. You can rechecker it and not refinish, but the only way to get a good clean line as you're sanding is to run up into the pattern. Now I'm not gratuitously damaging the pattern, but I am sanding up into it. If you don't, you will wind up with a great big dip. And we don't want to dip down into it because it looks terrible from across the room. You get this thing cross-lit the wrong way and it looks terrible. Again here, I'm at 150 grit. We're just sanding this with 150. Now, how is this stock so smooth? Well, it's smooth because when we began to shape it, we used a scraper. This is a piece of steel. It's a piece of spring steel. There's nothing fancy to it. You can use this about anything. But all we're doing is combing off and getting smooth. You could even draw file it like that. The trick is to get this all squared up. Now, this is a burnishing tool. It's hard as a rock. And we're going to take this edge and just roll it down like this. And what this is going to do is put a slight Gumby head on this thing. And it allows you to do this. Okay, there's a very, very slight edge there, and it allows you to do this. Let's say you have a completely hosed up 03 stock. What this scraper allows you to do is just very, very gently peel off the outer layer of this mung and come down, and it leaves an incredibly smooth surface behind that you can immediately start at 150. That's how our stock today was prepped, just like this. Nice and smooth and easy, no streaks, no nothing. This is technically an edged tool, and it makes a beautiful last tool to touch the work before you get into final finishing. So again, we use the scraper to prepare the surface, and that's why we're able to just roll in here. Y'all have heard me make the statement about the trick to this is to not screw it up in the first place. Traditional techniques use scrapers. That just makes for a better stock. Okay, so we'll work this down from 150 down to about well, we'll go straight to 320, and it depends upon what you're looking at in terms of your grits. Okay, there's no way on camera you're going to see whether or not I'm getting rid of any of the previous sanding streaks, but there really aren't any. This wood's clearing down. I don't go down below 320 ever. Eric will sometimes go down into the 400s when he's trying to make a point. I think that if you sand this stuff down too smooth, you will wind up, the finish doesn't stick as well. Then again, maybe I'm kidding myself. Maybe I should do what these guys over in London do and send it down to 1,000. Because you got to admit, their work is stunning. Their work is stunning, and you also have to admit, oh, baby. Yeah, that's going to be a pretty jam-up looking stick of wood from Model 94. It's been a pleasure, guys. Thanks a lot. Carbon-Based Lifeform, signing off.